everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of Theater Tuesday. And this is the show where I like to talk about all things stage and theater and so much fun. And today we are recapping my recent trip out to the Big Apple, to Broadway. And we're talking about the 5 shows that I saw. And I have with me to go through all of that. I have with me my friend Jax is here. And thank you so much for doing this.
Well, I'm so excited. I was lucky enough to see one of those shows with you, and
Yes.
you were my theater buddy when you're in town. I mostly go to see theater alone, so it's a treat when I get to go with such a good friend.
That's the same for me, that I typically go to most of my shows by myself. And so when I get to go with a friend, it adds definitely a special layer.
Well, I mean, if I was in Utah or you were in New York, I feel
Oh,
like we would be addicted to going to shows together.
yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I was saying that the only hard part about traveling is that I miss my friends so much. I mean, I'm so grateful to see them, but I miss my friends so much because most of my friends don't live where I live. I have 2 friends that I see on a regular basis, and then a couple others that I see, every couple months. And I'm grateful for them. But I just miss my friends when I have to leave.
Yeah, it's so sad. I'm just like, well, hopefully you'll be back in December.
Yeah, that's the hope. I gotta figure this out with Christmas con people. But if definitely, I think at the very least, I would be surprised if I'm not out there early next year.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
good.
In There's a Utah Theater Lovers group going out,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think in the end of February, March. And I don't know if I can afford that trip, but I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. But yeah, I am so excited because I found this hostel that I stayed at, the High USA NYC hostel, Amsterdam, 891 Amsterdam Avenue, New York City. And this was so exciting because that's the biggest hurdle to going anywhere, is finding affordable housing, but especially in New York, it's can be just like a massive part of your budget. So not only does it help me to be able to see more shows, it just allows me to stay more days.
Yeah.
And if I and so I was able because they have a bunch of different options at this hostel. You can rent a private room. I'm not sure about the price on those. I think it's still pretty reasonable, but you can do a private room. Then there's rooms with 8 bunks and there's rooms with 10 bunks. And I was in the 10 bunk room and I stayed for 5 nights for $417.
I mean, in New York, that's insane.
That's crazy. That's really, 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 really cheap. And it would be a great solution if you had like a group of girlfriends or just
Yeah.
like a family. You could all get, one of these rooms and have, a great deal. The only thing that I would change next time is I would make sure I got a bottom bunk because it was kind of hard to get up on that top bunk. I'm not as agile as I used to be getting
I
up
think
there.
even being agile, being on the top bunk, I've always found it terrifying. I
Yeah.
did one summer at summer stock in the top bunk, and I was like,
Uh-huh.
never again."
Yeah. But I was a little bit anxious, like, is it going to be hard to get to sleep? Are people going to be respectful? Are people going to be, I just didn't know, what the experience would be like. But it was great. Maybe I just got a, lucky room. Everybody lights were out at 11. There's absolutely no drinking or eating allowed in the room. And so it's really pretty much just for sleeping. That's like people aren't just like hanging out in the room. And some people would come in at different times, but people were very quiet. It was just I was impressed with the whole experience on that level. Like, and everybody was very like modest and respectful and all of that. And they give you have your own locker, which you can fit a full size suitcase, a regular
Oh, that's
suitcase
great.
in there. Yeah. And then you have you can buy a lock there, bring your own lock. The lock was $6 because I forgot to bring my lock. Uh, and yeah, I mean, it was I think, a very positive experience. Everything was really clean. And there you do have a, communal bathroom, communal showers, but there was high, the doors were high, so it's not like anybody could see into you taking a
Yeah.
shower, and there was an additional curtain. So it was very, like, very private, very clean. Um, I felt completely comfortable with that side of it. So anyway, it was just a great solution, certainly for my needs, because I mean, I'm just barely there. And if you do want to there if you do stay there, they have like activities, there's like
Oh,
tours and
really?
different, yeah, and there's like a comedy night that a friend of mine on Twitter was saying that he went to, and was pretty fun. And like downstairs they have like a pool table and games, and so you can do more. You can make it more, and there's a kitchen that you can use down
Oh,
in the basement. So there, and there is like a monthly membership that you can do, which I might do because it's really cheap. It's like $5 a month. And so yeah, it was a very positive experience, and I'm really excited about it.
yeah, because I feel like Rachel, when you come to New York, you pack it
I know, I
literally
do.
more than anyone I know. Like, I don't, you barely, like, you're not someone
Yeah,
who's going to be hanging out in the room.
exactly.
Usually, yeah, you're here seeing shows, you're working, you're going
Yeah.
to see movies, you're just like, you're out and about.
Yeah. The only downside is that I couldn't like record,
Oh,
or,
right. Yeah.
that if somebody needed to do an interview, that's just not an option, as opposed to a hotel room where I could.
Yeah.
So that'd be the only downside, is that, but I definitely am going to do it again. And it allowed me, people are like, wow, she did a lot. I did a lot because I had super cheap housing. And if I had
Yeah.
had a hotel, I couldn't, maybe I could have done 2
Yeah.
shows, maybe. So it's an important part of this whole thing. So I'm really excited about it.
I wonder, Rachel, if they would sponsor the
Yeah,
podcast
hey,
and
yeah,
you could get
yeah.
free because it is such
I
a great
should.
resource for people to
Yeah,
know
yeah.
that that's there.
Yeah. Hey, if you're
I mean,
listening, Uh,
just saying.
but yeah, so it was interesting trying to pick out what to see. I kind of all went with all newer stuff, because
Yeah.
there's some shows from last year that I haven't caught up on that I thought about, like Kimberly Kimbo I still haven't seen, things like that. But yeah, I was going for more new stuff. And I even ended up seeing one preview, which was kind of a mistake, because like critics aren't really supposed to see previews. And or if you do, you're supposed to get permission. I didn't know. Like, next time I'll go through the whole protocol, and I know now kind of what to do. But anyway, that can be a way if people are looking to get discounts on big, like, hot buzz shows, is if you can see it in a preview. Sometimes you can save money.
Are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night, or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies.
Show that I saw was The Shark is Broken. This is a play, and it is the behind the scenes look at the 3 actors that were playing the 3 main characters in Jaws. And as a big fan of Jaws, that was really fun for me to see. And I think that the 3 actors playing Robert Shaw, Roy Scheider, and Richard Dreyfuss were phenomenal, really, really good. And it had the way that they captured the boat, because the whole thing was filmed, it wasn't in a tank, it was on the ocean. And the way that through projections they made it look like the ocean, I thought was very effective. And it definitely got that sense of claustrophobia from it. I do think that you have to know Jaws fairly well to appreciate it. I mean, you can
Yeah.
appreciate it. Oh, that's good acting. That's good.
Yeah.
You know, you could appreciate it on that level. But I think that it helps a lot if you know Jaws well. And I kind of wished, even though I've seen it a number of times, I kind of wish I had watched it like the day before, just so it was really fresh in my mind. I think that I would have I would have recognized like so many different Easter eggs and so many different things that, because it's been a year or two since I've seen it,
Yeah.
that weren't as fresh. But yeah, it was a cool experience. I'm definitely glad I saw it.
What was the vibe in the theater? Did you feel like people were responsive to it? Or, you can sometimes feel the energy of people
Yeah.
being like, what is this?
Well, it was pretty sparse, and
Mm.
I'm not sure if that's just because I was at a matinee. I actually got moved way up from where my
Oh,
seat. Yeah. And so that, that's obviously not a good sign. It is a limited run. So it ends on November 19th.
yeah.
So yeah, I don't think it'll be extended, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was funny because I think I was mentioning it to you when we saw each other that the guy who sat behind me at Gutenberg was talking about this play, and he was like, I watched Jaws last night to prepare for it. So he was fresh in the mentality of it. And
Mm-hmm.
the fact that you're saying that makes a difference,
I think so.
that's something that is an interesting kind of noteworthy thing going to see something like that.
Yeah, but I bet you can get some really good deals because, like I said, they pretty much there were most of the balcony where I was at was empty.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I mean, there were probably maybe 20 of us on the balcony. It was sparse. So yeah, in that sense, it was kind of not the most energetic, of crowds, but the acting was excellent. I wouldn't be surprised if you see, at the very least, if you see Ian Shaw, if you see him get if you see him get nominated for a
Oh,
Tony
wow.
for play.
That's
He was
exciting.
playing Robert Shaw, I think his dad. He was playing his dad, I think.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that.
And
Okay,
and
very
so
cool.
yeah, really good. And he has the iconic, Robert Shaw has the iconic scene at the end of Jaws, the Indianapolis speech is iconic, and so it's all kind of the everything in the play is all kind of leading up to that moment where he says that speech. So
That's a really cool thing, getting to play his dad's role. That's very special.
Yeah. So let's see. Yeah. That this is directed by, co-written by Ian Shaw and Joseph Nixon, and inspired by Robert Shaw's experience playing Quint on the Notorious Shoot. So interesting. Anyway, so yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm glad I saw it. And I think people will enjoy it if they get a chance to see it. And they definitely, I mean, they just captured the look, and all three of these actors looked exactly like the actors in the original film. So that was the first thing I saw. And then the second thing I saw was Gutenberg the musical, and you've seen it twice.
Twice. Right? I saw it twice the day before you saw it. So our timing was impeccable.
And I'm excited because I got to review it for Utah Theater Bloggers Association, because there was some interest here because it did one of its tryouts years ago in 2007, because this thing has been floating around for over a decade.
That's what I didn't realize until quite recently, but I had no idea that it had one of its tryouts in Utah. That's very cool.
In 2007, there's this company called the Plan B Theater Company here, and they did it, and I guess it won like some local regional awards. It was a big hit. And then the Egyptian in Park City, and so years ago, and so that was fun to get to write a review. I'd never had a third party publish a review of mine for a Broadway show.
Yes, that's so cool.
of course I've had, local reviews and even for
Yeah.
touring companies and stuff, but never on Broadway, never
On
a
Broadway.
premiere opening. So
Yeah.
that was fun. And like I said, I learned a lot because I didn't realize that I had to get like all the approvals and go talk to the agent and I didn't realize I had to get like specific graphics and just all that stuff.
Right. You're like,
So
oh, okay, this is a whole new thing.
yeah, and I'm grateful to Russ at UTBA for like being so patient and working with me on that. And you maybe people would expect somebody who's a member of American Theater Critics Association to know all this stuff, but since I'm regional, I didn't, and so it's good to learn.
Well, it's a totally different ball game. Like, even whether like you're an actor in regional theater, stage manager, or critic reviewing regional theater. I love regional theater. I love doing it. I love seeing it.
Yeah.
But it like there are different things to consider and things to know about.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, absolutely. It's like I don't think you should be expected to know every rule for every market.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But what did you think? What did you think of it?
So, I mean, I'm a little biased because I went twice because my friend's in it and he's understudying Josh Gad. So I got to watch my friend like in his Broadway debut. So
Mhm.
I thought like I loved it. I love seeing him. It was a really special moment for me. The show itself, I think it's interesting too, the dynamic and the history between Josh and Andrew Reynolds. They're best friends. They did Book of Mormon together. It's really
Mhm.
exciting to see the two of them because I saw it later that night with Josh in it. It's an interesting thing because the story is not something that would normally appeal to me at all.
Mhm.
But I think that the performances and like there weren't a lot of songs that I was like, wow, that's a toe tapper. That's going to
Mhm.
stick in my
Mhm.
head. But I think the sheer joy of the actors on stage and watching them connect with each other and getting to see my friend made it a really special theatrical experience for me. Well, first of all, I want to know what you thought about everything, but I have a specific question for you about the role at the end, which it's not really a secret. They've talked about it and they're
Mhm.
posting on their social media that they have a new person doing it every night.
Yeah.
And it was Ben Platt the other day. It was Nathan Lane at one point. It's been lots of different people.
Mm.
What do you think about that part? And how do you think it will affect the show? Different people coming in and out of that. Like, did that take you out of it? What did you think?
Yeah, ours it was, I think, just one of the understandings. I think it might have been your friend.
Oh, it was. Oh, get that. I think that
Yeah.
was his last time that he was supposed to do it, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it was the Josh Gad understudy. So
Mhm.
yeah, I thought it was fun, and if it had, because that was the clips going around Instagram with not only was it Nathan Lane, but he was as Max Balastak from the
Amazing.
producers. Yeah, so he's like, I'm going to invest in this great show, and obviously that character is known for investing in bad stuff, so it's
That's
kind of a
amazing.
layer of funny. And so yeah, I think that would be super fun if like, I don't know, like Patti LuPone, it did it once, or even an Audra McDonald, that would be really funny, or
Mhm.
just anybody like that. It would be great.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
If you got
I think
Lin-Manuel, that would be hilarious if they got
he'll
Lin.
definitely do it. He'll definitely do
Yeah,
it.
he
At
would
some
do it.
point.
Yeah, that would be really good. And so yeah, I think that could add a layer, just a
Yeah.
fun little thing. And I do feel like the strongest part of the show is just a celebration of friendship
Yes.
and the friendship of the two leads. If you had leads that didn't have chemistry, it would be death to the show.
Absolutely.
You absolutely need that. And I thought overall it was fun. I enjoyed it. I gave it a positive review. So the actors have wonderful chemistry together. The friendship shines in a script that is as much about their bond as it is about satirizing musical theater.
Yes.
And I compared it in my review to Something Rotten and Drowsy Chaperone. And where Something Rotten's obviously satirizing, because it's all historical fiction. This is not Gutenberg like at all. They're like, we don't really hardly know anything about
We have no idea.
him at all.
Yeah.
So this is all just fake, just the same way that Something Rotten is pretty much all fake.
Yeah.
And it's all just for fun. It's the same idea. And then, the Drowsy Chaperone satirizing musical theater and, all the jokes and everything about that, poking fun at the tropes of musical theater and some of the even uncomfortable, parts of the past and
Yeah.
all of that. And I don't think it's nearly as strong as either of those. But if you enjoy those, I bet you'll have a fun time with this.
I think that's a great way to put it. Like Drowsy Chaperone for me, like I remember seeing Sutton Foster in that role and
Yeah.
her singing Show Off. And to me,
Yeah.
that's like one of the best performances of a song I've seen
Mhm.
on stage ever. Yes. So I feel you. Like this isn't that, but I definitely enjoyed it. And I think that those two the two examples of Something Rotten and Drowsy Chaperone are spot on. It's like it's like when they do Netflix recommendations, like if you liked this, you'll enjoy this. I think you're exactly
Yeah.
right about that.
I also thought of I don't know if you ever seen the 39 Steps.
Yes.
In the scene in 39 Steps when, there's a bunch of scenes, but when they keep taking the hats, putting on different hats and
Yes.
having a conversation with himself. And because there's this whole table of hats with different character names,
Yeah.
and they get a lot of leverage out of that. And so
To me, that's like actor's nightmare. Like I would be so worried about messing up those hats.
Yeah, I know. But I my main critique of the show is that, so I guess originally it was like a 45-minute one act, and I kind of think
Oh.
it maybe should have stayed at a 45. Like I don't think that it should have been a musical. I think that pretty much every single successful joke is in the book. It's not in the lyrics. It's not in the songs. I don't, they were compared to Something Rotten, which has some catchy tunes. Something Rotten,
Yeah, for sure.
it has catchy tunes. And I think something like the 39 Steps or The Play That Goes Wrong, those just being straight plays, I think this would be more successful of something like that.
I also think this is the kind of show, this is like piggybacking off your point, but it's the kind of show that could also work really well without intermission. Even if it's not 45 minutes, even if it's, 65 minutes, 70 minutes, whatever. But some shows you need the intermission to like, you're sorting through things, you're processing, and then you need to like ramp it back up again.
Yeah.
This could have gone straight through and it would have been fine.
Yeah, or like I think Bright Star is a great example of that, or Les Mis.
Yes.
You really leaves you on that one day more, or Bright Star with the Man's Got to Do reprise. He throws the baby off the train, and so you're just like on this emotional high. So the intermission actually kind of helps with that.
Totally.
Because there increasingly aren't intermissions in Broadway shows. I was kind of surprised that 6 didn't have an intermission because it's already so short. So I feel like it just kind of magnified the fact that it was really short.
Like, you're out of there.
Yeah, you really are. You're in, out. But yeah, you're seeing that more and more. And I think that's a good point. Yeah, it's the kind of show that I can't imagine like anybody like actively hating. Like it's perfectly pleasant, enjoyable. But it's probably smart that I think it has like a limited run.
I think
because I don't think it's one that's gonna like hang around for a long time.
Yeah, and I don't see it having, and honestly, I'll probably stand corrected. I don't see it having a big regional life because it really sells, like the 2 stars are what sells this.
The only reason it might is just because I think it'd be super cheap.
That is true.
Literally all you need is the hats.
You need the hats
and a table.
And like the smallest cast possible. So yeah, you're right.
So that's the only reason I could see it. It kind of, I could see it sort of having like the 39 Steps or like Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder.
Yeah.
I could see it kind of having because they have one actor playing most of the parts in that.
That's true.
Yeah.
You're right. When it's just that cheap.
I think there's only 4 roles in Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. There's 2 women, there's the Dice With, and there's the lead guy.
Yeah.
pretty sure maybe there's one other. I think there's the nurse or whatever comes in at the beginning. So, but it's small.
That had
small
pretty good
cast.
regional life. So yeah.
Yeah. That's the only reason I could see it. But I think it'll be a little bit of a hard sell.
Yeah.
Because of just, it sounds kind of boring. Gutenberg the musical.
Right.
You know? And so you have to kind of get people to start talking about it. And so that'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah.
But you got to admire these Anthony King and Scott Brown who wrote it. I mean, boy, they've been working on this thing for, I mean, congrats to them for finally getting it on Broadway. Because like I said, it's been hanging around. They did it off Broadway. They did it in West End. They did it in Chicago. Since in Salt Lake, since like 2005.
I mean, can you imagine? It's
No,
like now
I
your baby's
can't.
finally on Broadway.
I cannot imagine working on something for 20 years. Oh my gosh.
You're gonna write your script and it's gonna be a lot faster than that.
Wow.
That's a journey.
Hey, this is David from the Piecing It Together podcast, a podcast about movies and the movies that inspire them. For over 4 years, each week, a guest and I take a look at a new movie through the lens of what other movies we think were either an influence or connect in some other way. It's a fun, unique way to discuss films that leads to a great list of other movies to check out that either explore the same themes and ideas or maybe utilize similar filmmaking techniques. Including special episodes in our side series that twist the format, we've done over 200 episodes, so there's bound to be one on a film you've been thinking about and want to dig deeper into. So check us out on all the major podcasting apps and at piecingpod.com.
So then on Monday, it was interesting because Monday, most of Broadway is dark. You have basically 4 options on, at least at this current time, to see on Monday. You can see Chicago, because it used to be Phantom and Chicago, but obviously
Right. It was always Phantom.
Yeah. And so you could see Chicago, but I've already seen that. You can see Blue Man Group, which I've never seen. I considered. I've heard actually quite good. I've never seen. So that may be next trip. That'd be my Monday choice.
Yeah.
And then you can see The Play That Goes Wrong at the same stage of the place where I saw it, is New World Stage. They have The Play That Goes Wrong there. You can see that, and then you can see what's called Dracula, Untold Terrors, or something like that. Anyway, it's a parody of Dracula, and this is off Broadway technically. And I was a little bit nervous because I tend to be not the biggest fan of parody.
Mm-hmm.
But Dracula, Comedy of Terrors is what it's called. And so I was a little nervous.
Comedy of Terrors.
But then I've had on Theater Tuesday, Tim Leninger, he did a review of it and he was pretty complimentary. And so I was like, oh, okay. That gave me, and so I decided to go for it. And I'm really glad I did. It was really funny. And particularly James Daly, who played Dracula, he stole the show. They were all good at what they do. They're all pros, but he was very funny, and he like played up the like sexy Dracula.
Yeah,
things like he starts out, he's like, look at my sculpted abs, and he's of course enamored with Lucy, and he's like trying to show off, and it was just really funny. Yeah. And the dynamic between him and Andrew Keenan Bulger, who was playing Harker Jonathan, was really funny because he's like nerdy and awkward and comfortable, and then Dracula's like, hey,
That's how I didn't realize Andrew was in it. I've seen his sister Celia. She's a big Broadway actor too, and she's super talented. She's great. Yeah.
Well, I saw him just randomly in this is my first time seeing him on Broadway, but he was I guess he was crutchy in Newsies, but
Yes.
he also was in this little movie called The Rewrite that I really loved with Hugh Grant, that like nobody saw, nobody talked about, but I thought it was really funny and good. And he plays, nerdy, dorky character. That's kind of his wheelhouse. But
I could see that.
Yeah, but they were funny together. And also, so Ellen Harvey, she plays she was funny because she's playing a man. She's playing Lucy's father. And she also plays Renfield, who's the servant of Dr. Westfield. And so she's like, it's certain scenes, she's putting on the wig, going back and forth between the two of them, which was very impressive. And it was funny because they have Arnie Burton playing Mina, and then also he plays Van Helsing as a woman.
Oh,
and
I love that.
and Dr. Westfield thinks that that a woman can't be a doctor, and she's always saying, and it's like funny because she's a woman,
yeah,
whatever.
That's
and
fun.
So that was a fun dynamic. And but my favorite by far though was any scene with Dracula. When he was off the stage, it started to, you felt it after a little bit. You're like, oh, we need him back because he was so
Bring
funny.
him back.
Yeah. And I was impressed though how much of the actual book of Dracula, the story, is in there. Like pretty much the whole story.
Which is actually surprising with something like this. A lot of times they play fast and loose.
Yeah. So that kind of surprised me. That, I mean, pretty much everything with Lucy and Mina and Van Helsing, and it's all there. They've got the whole thing with the boat at the beginning, and I mean, just everything. The novel's basically there, which I thought was
that's
interesting.
impressive.
Yeah. So I think it's definitely worth. I bet it's a show that you can get a good deal on.
Yeah.
And because it's off Broadway, and
kind of fun during spooky season.
Yeah, and
Dracula.
it wasn't like there were like sexy jokes, and there were jokes, about women and men and things like that. But it wasn't. I mean, I think it was all pretty safely PG-13.
Yeah.
Maybe there was a little language, but it was pretty good.
I'm excited to see it, and especially because this Dracula you like a lot.
Certainly anybody in high school or middle school up would be fine.
Yeah.
I think, seeing it. So anyway, I enjoyed it. And then on Tuesday is when we got together, and you were so kind to treat me. Wow.
Well, amazing. I was so glad. I get so excited when you come to town. I'm like, can I entice Rachel to move here? I know you're very happy where you are, but I love having you in town.
I used to want to move to New York. In my 20s, that was like a big dream of mine, but it's just one of those things that never really happened. But now that I have this cheap place to stay, it's very exciting.
Yeah, and I think it's such a great, you end up being able to do so much work when you're actually here. So,
yeah, that's true. Especially since I was there for the New York Film Festival.
Yeah.
And so I was able to see 5 films as well.
I love that you saw 5 films and 5 shows.
Yeah. Yes.
This girl does not play.
No. Yeah. And I got to see you. I got to see my friend Stacey Agdern. I got to see Terry from the podcast, Terry Lima. That was fun. We had never met. And I got to see Mark Bonanni, who's been on Theater Tuesdays a bunch of times. And so that was really fun to go to lunch with him. And then my friend Allison Brown, who's a critic out there. And I told her she should like plan trips to like people's trips to New York. She would be so good at that.
She already knows. She has
impeccable taste. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway. And so I had a really fun time also, but we went and saw Back to the Future, the musical. And what were your thoughts overall?
Well, number one, I was really excited to see you, and I was really excited to see this with you.
Yeah.
And even from the moment we walked in the theater, I felt this sense of excitement for even, I'm someone who, put me in a black box theater with no props, no set, and right. I'm there for the acting. But I will say that all the spectacle of this, it titillated me right from the beginning. I was really excited for the show to start. for some reason, like the first 5 to 10 minutes, like I couldn't fully get into it. But after that, I was like totally charmed. I thought it was, the songs were really fun. I thought it had definitely the spirit of the original. I thought the guy that played Marty McFly,
Was so
his
good.
voice, oh my gosh, Rachel,
Yeah.
adorable, sounded just like Michael J. Fox. I really thought the whole dynamic was really fun. It just was joyful from start to finish. It felt really joyful.
That's what I agree. I think that it could have felt very cynical, very
Mhm.
corporate easily, but it didn't. There was creativity, there was energy, there was heart in there. And maybe I use that word too liberally, but it really didn't feel like sort of a corporate cash grab kind of a thing. Like it felt that, and I agree with you about the spectacle. That's really the most special part of it. And honestly, the first act I was kind of like, that was fun, but then it was the second act, the way they did the time travel in the car and the just everything. That whole second act was so well done with all the lighting and the projections and the lightning and just all of it was I'm sure this will be very popular once it goes out to regional theater, in 20 years. It'll be a long time.
Yes,
But
it'll be a long time.
maybe not that long, but it'll be a while. And I think it'll be tough. It'll be really hard for them to pull off. Like I don't even know how you would do it, because I mean, how many
I'm curious
DeLoreans are
too.
just, how do you do it? I don't know how you do it, but because so much of the appeal was the spectacle. And I agree, the lead playing Marty, Casey Likes, he is great find.
So great. It's funny. I looked him up on Instagram after, and of course, like he's playing this, like, of course he looks young on stage, his young character. But when I looked him up on Instagram, I was like, he is a baby. He just looks so young.
Yeah. But I would have been okay with them taking a little bit less of a literal approach. I mean, it was pretty much just shot for shot from the movie, and I would have been fine with them. Like I think we could have added a scene of explaining why Doc and Marty are friends. Like, how do they even know each other? Like, we don't know that in the movie. And that would have been a way to kind of make it a little unique and a little bit funny. Like, why is this high schooler friends with this old scientist? Like, what is it? And or just something like that they could have kind of made it their own. But it was pretty much, even to the costumes were exactly like the movie. I mean, if you don't like don't forget it. Like,
don't go see it. This is not like it's reinventing the wheel.
No. And yeah, it's not like Lion King or sort of these musicals that really take the material and then do their own thing. This is more of a straight shot for shot take on the movie, and which I could have been fine either way. But the only thing, because it was so literal, that didn't 100% work for me is the Doc wasn't quite Christopher Lloyd to me.
Yeah.
It was just a little, I don't know. It was just not quite. It's everything else was so literal. They didn't quite nail that for me, but
yeah, that's very interesting, because Roger Bart played the Doc, and he's a Broadway legend. He's great. And I thought he did a great job with the role, but I will agree that, because I think it was just that Casey sounds so much like Michael J. Fox. And
yeah,
I thought the actor that played George McFly was so spot on too.
Yeah,
like there was just
everybody was such an imitation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it was almost like Roger Bart took it and made it his own, which is cool. But you're right, because it was essentially shot for shot the movie, it didn't have the same effect.
Yeah. But it was my favorite thing that I saw. And I know that there's some Broadway people that, especially since I saw Marilyn We Roll Along, that will kind of scoff at that. Like, how could that be your favorite of the 5? Huh? It was, I mean, partly because I saw it with you. And so I
Yeah.
have that memory, which is part of it, but it was just such a fun experience. The projections, the lighting, you were really taken back. And it is a film that I absolutely love. One of my favorites.
Yeah, it's so nice. Like I am someone who I absolutely will, go to see a Chekhov play and like cry my eyes out and love it. But this was just so fun. And to get to see it with one of my best friends, a movie that I love. Um, a critique that you had about the candy, though, was a missed opportunity for the theater.
Yeah, I'm glad you remembered that. Well, because there's this one theater which when you come out, it'll definitely take you, called the Parker Theater.
Yes.
And they it's so much fun. For every show, they have themed concessions. And so, they'll have like different, Italian sodas with like fun names that have to do, or like for Emma, they had scones with clotted cream. I just love it. It's so fun. And I think that they could have had a little bit fun either doing 1980s concessions or 1950s concessions. Either.
Both either? We'll
Yeah.
take what it was like went to the concession
I think they
stand and
make
it was like
bank.
what they could make bank. Think about also like especially in the world, that we live in of social media, people are going to be more likely to buy it so they can Instagram it.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. Yeah.
And I think I wasn't very hungry because I had gotten tater tots and a veggie
we had a
burger right
big
before.
we had a big dinner.
Well, you didn't really, but I did. And I got the tots. But like 100% if they would have had 80s candy or 50s candy, I just would have gotten something to get it.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, just to show how much I do love the original film, I was just looking it up. My last time I did a top 100 movies of all time, and this has been a couple of years, but it was number 7 for my list. So it is a movie I love.
Well, just out of curiosity, sorry, I don't want to get us too off track, but what are the 6 before it? I just need to know.
So I have an anime film I love called Your Name, The Little Mermaid, which is partly huge nostalgia, but I still do love it. Jurassic Park, again, foundation movie for me, a movie that was the first like blockbuster I really loved, and I still love it to this day. The Wizard of Oz, number 4. Number 5, Spirited Away, another anime that I love. And number 6 is You've Got Mail.
Oh yeah,
movie that I love.
Classic.
Yeah. And then I have Breakfast at Tiffany's, Star Wars, and It's a Wonderful Life. That's the top 10 at that time. I might not have Breakfast at Tiffany's quite as high. It was my favorite movie in college. So again, sort of nostalgia. I have Sound of Music, Monty Python, and Clueless is the next ones on there.
Those are all classic. Like there's so much about our formative experiences that are like all wrapped up in that stuff too.
Yeah. So this was just it was a loving tribute to one of my favorite movies. They didn't do anything that like screwed it up or made me mad or anything. They didn't try to like 2023 it. You weren't, all of a sudden it hadn't gone woke, for lack of a better word. This is just, I can't imagine if you like Back to the Future, you'll like this.
You'll like it. Yeah.
Yeah. I really,
sure.
I mean, I can see the real artistic people, that are like Broadway's turning into an amusement park. I understand that. But I think you still have to be able to say when amusement park shows are done well and when they're not done well. And this is done well.
I totally agree. Like sometimes I want to go to an amusement park. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And that you're right, this worked. And even if you don't usually like musicals, I would totally agree with you that if you like Back to the Future, you'll like this, period.
Yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anne of Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
So then I saw Merrily We Roll Along. This was my big splurge. It was expensive. And I ended up, even though I paid a lot, I was second from the back, and the rows were so tilted. I felt like I was gonna have vertigo. It was,
Oh God.
I mean, it was. You can tell it's the most popular ticket in town right now because I paid $180 for second to the back seats. But it was my once, splurge. And I really was curious because I can be kind of mixed on Sondheim. I'm not like a fan girl. Famously, I don't love Into the Woods. But I do even Into the Woods, I do respect, and I respect his talent. But I just, sometimes he can be a bit hit miss for me. And so I was really curious to see this one that was the big miss for almost everybody. When it first came out, it was a huge flop. It almost made him step away from writing for a while. It was the last collaboration between him and Harold Prince. And they'd had such a positive, they'd done Sweeney Todd and Company and all that. And I do think that I genuinely prefer Sondheim when he's a little bit more modern in his themes and in his storytelling, as opposed to like the whimsy, because I just prefer Company over. I prefer this and Company over even Sweeney Todd and Into the Woods. I haven't seen Sunday in the Park with George and a few of other ones, but anyway, and so I think I still do prefer Company over this, but it was really interesting. And Jonathan Groff, I think he probably will win a Tony for this.
Really?
Yeah,
he is an amazing performer.
The only thing that might make it harder is I think it's a limited run. So by the time Tonys come, people might have forgotten a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I forget how long it's going till. But anyway, he's absolutely great. And I didn't know really the show at all. And I didn't realize that it's pretty much his show. The other two are much more supporting characters, especially Mary. She hardly has, I was surprised. She doesn't even have like her own solo, really.
I actually didn't realize that because I've never seen it on stage. I had a Sondheim seminar in college where we read the book, like listened to the score, like everything like that. But they're really billing it as like it's the three of them, their show. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is about their friendship, but he is by far the lead character. Franklin Shepard is his name. And if people don't know, it starts at the end, the dissolvement of their friendship, and then goes all the way back to when they first met. And you see divorces, you see marriages, you see all the stuff, the different deals, their big show that they had, and all of that. And so it is kind of, it's a sad show because you're seeing it's interesting because it ends on this really happy note, but like you realize that it's, that's just the beginning, and where it ends, it's kind of sad. Because it's just sad to see, friendships that they don't always last. And, that's sad. Daniel Radcliffe is Charlie. He basically has kind of one big song, unless I'm forgetting something, but there was sort of one big song, and he's sort of the married, stable one of the three in this relationship. He has, I think by the end, he has like 4 kids, and
oh wow,
yeah. And so, and then you have Mary, who she's this author, and she becomes kind of more and more of an alcoholic by the end. So you see her just like, at first she's not even going to go down that path, and so it's just interesting. And it was all very well done, very well staged. The costumes, the The sets, it looked like the 70s. It had that vintage feel. And all this, singing was all excellent, especially Jonathan, just outstanding. And it was a treat to get to see it. I think that I want to read some of those reviews from, the 1981, because I'm just curious what they hated about it so much, because I thought it was like solid. It didn't like change my life or anything, but I was like, I don't understand why Company gets so much. I mean, I love Company, it's my favorite, but I don't think it's like that much better. It's not like, I don't understand why this one is a flop last 2 weeks and that is like Tony Award winning, everyone's favorite.
Yeah, like what is the difference? Well, it's interesting. I was actually talking with a friend of mine about Merrily We Roll Along the other day, and she hasn't seen this latest version, but she saw it.
It was on off Broadway, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she said that they did it linear. They started at, and I was like, wait, the whole thing is that it's working back.
Oh, that's
and
weird.
I was like, that is
I feel like it would be really ordinary. Like it would
completely,
like,
right?
Yeah. Like you kind of need that to make it special. That's strange.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't like that at all. But
No.
I think that a really good comparison, if you love the last 5 years.
I was just going to say, yeah.
The last 5 years is more singable. It has more like, see, I'm still smiling. And some of those songs are more singable. And, Sondheim doesn't really write singable shows. And so it's stronger in that regard, but it's very similar. I think the shows are very close.
Something I love the last 5. I think granted, I haven't seen Merrily. I'm seeing it in a couple of weeks, so we'll text you about that when I do. But last 5 years feels so heartbreaking because they're working in different directions. You see his ending, which is them not being together, with their first date from her perspective. And it is just like, I'm getting chills thinking about the first time I saw that, because it took me to a whole new place.
I've only seen it one time, but of course listened to the soundtrack on this cast recording on nauseum. But yeah, it just has like a similar sense of capturing a moment in time, friendship, even though that's a marriage. It's still, I think they're very close, even in the style of, I think the songs are somewhat similar as far as their modern style, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if that was an influence on Chasing Robert Brown.
Definitely.
I mean, I'm sure who wasn't influenced by Sondheim.
Yeah, very true. that was that show last 5 years. Oh my gosh, I'd love to see that again.
I know, me too.
Did you like the movie?
I did. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, Jeremy Jordan, hello.
He's so great. He's so great. I hope he does another Hallmark soon.
I know. I'd love that. Well, he's going to be doing Great Gatsby.
Oh, I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, brand new musical. You should check on Instagram. They have a bunch of clips and stuff. Will. Yeah, and Anna Kendrick. I mean, I think it's underrated as far as the musical. Yeah. I liked it a lot. So there we go. I think that I would give my order of the 5 that I saw. I think I would say my favorite was Back to the Future, and then probably Merrily We Roll Along, and then Shark is Broken, and then Dracula, and then Gutenberg.
Yeah, I feel like,
but they were all good. I liked them all.
It's exciting that you saw quite a range of shows.
Yeah.
You didn't just go to see all the big ticket ones. You didn't go to see just all like, off indie. Like you had a really good mix of stuff that you were seeing.
I'm proud of that too, that it worked out that well in that way, that it was a well crafted, I think, trip in that sense.
Yeah. And it's so funny because Kimbo has been on forever, but you and I have both still not seen it. And that was like our second choice if we weren't doing Back to the Future. So maybe next time you're in, both of us, I don't know when it's running until, but maybe we'll finally see it together.
Yeah. I know. We're some reason it just feels like, oh, it's gonna be so depressing. But I've heard it's
I
not. I
know.
heard it's very, heartwarming. And so I think I just need to see it.
I know, I hear you. The same for me. And like I like I was saying, I love going to theater alone, but sometimes I have to be careful with whatever mental state I'm in. If I'm seeing it
Right,
alone,
yeah.
you just gotta balance all
true.
that.
It's true. It's true. Well, let us know if you're listening. If you've seen any of these shows on Broadway or off Broadway or whatever, we'd love to hear your thoughts. And I'll put a link down to my review for UTBA. And I may have more coverage coming I turned in a piece for Onstage blog. We'll see if they like it. I don't know. More writing. So make sure you check out Rachel's Reviews Theater.com. And if people want to follow you on social, how do they do that?
Jacqueline Collier on Instagram, and I'm not really doing X, but I'm Jacqueline C Tweets over there.
Oh, great. Yeah. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel and check out the Theater Tuesday playlist. And thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.